The newly elected Western Cape DA leader, Tertuis Simmers, has committed to securing the official opposition's victory in the 2024 general elections. He defeated opponent Ribatika for the position. Yakulont was elected unopposed as provincial chairperson. Jordan Hill-Lewis, also unopposed, was elected deputy leader. Simmers joins us now to discuss his new responsibilities. Mr. Simmers, appreciate your time this morning. Congratulations on your appointment. And let's talk about the next few months ahead of that election. What do you promise the people of the Western Cape?
Well, firstly, thank you for your well wishes, and also good morning to all of your viewers. No, indeed, for the last 18 months, we have been putting our election plan in motion, focusing, obviously, the first hurdle is next weekend's very crucial registration weekend, and it's important they know that we get our voters who need to register to vote to go out en masse to go and register at the specific voting stations. Then, will then start focusing on the election itself in next year in 2024. We have put, once again, our targets in place. Our structures are ready. Our activists have been receiving training. But also, we do tests of our system rigorously and regularly if we're possible. And we've also adapted and streamlined some of our processes, having learned over the last 22 months through the various by-elections, what works, what does not work, but also what tactics need to change. So that is why when I made the commitment to Congress yesterday, that is a commitment I do plan to honor, but as a team we can all do this together as fellow activists in the DA Western Cape. Also realizing that we also have a crucial and important role to play in terms of the DA's federal objective at a national level.
Now, in your interview yesterday, you mentioned being the leader that your rival, Ribatika, will now follow. How do you plan to foster unity and collaboration within the party despite the competitive leadership contest? And it was one of the issues that Ribatika raised. And he said it was apparent that you are now the leader and have to follow. And he kind of took a jibe and said, it wasn't necessary for you to mention that.
Well, first and foremost, the full context of the question I responded to is that, the Congress is now done. Unlike other parties, the party is now focused, all of us, on moving forward. And as the leader, I'm also the activist, like Ribatika is an activist of our party. And I lead the structure together with my fellow PEC members. So, that is now the past. We are moving forward, and he's part of the DA Western Cape. And we are all bound by the same rules and discipline. None of us are above our own party's values and principles, but also our disciplinary processes. And that is the full context of my response.
Well, talk to us how you intend to foster unity. Because invariably what happens is when people are contesting, there's almost an enmity of sorts, maybe not between yourselves as the leadership, but certainly between those that are following.
Well, let me say, once the announcement was done yesterday and, afterwards, even people that voted for Ribatika came down, shook my hand as a fellow activist, and that's a sign of mature democracy even within our own party, because they understand that we have a big task at hand. But I also do realize, being in the party for 23 years and having come through a lot of congresses, it depends on how the campaigns were managed leading up to yesterday's Congress, with the final result being known, which ultimately impacts on those who follow us and who support us. But once again, my call still remains, we are all DA members and activists first and foremost, and the party must be the real winner, and ultimately the DA Western Cape is the real winner yesterday.
Now, you're infrastructure MSc, so how do you plan to leverage your role as infrastructure MSc in conjunction with your leadership of the DA and the Western Cape for the benefit of the province and the party? Now, one of the things that your leader has said is that the Western Cape is the most well-managed city in South Africa. But there's also been talk that there are many individuals that remain marginalized, particularly those in the townships.
Well, firstly, focusing on my governance role in terms of infrastructure, it's important to note that we have systems and processes and data in place, which is why we can manage to ensure that the Western Cape, from an infrastructure perspective, we maintain our infrastructure regularly, we upgrade when needed, and we expand to build new infrastructure within our limited resources at our disposal. But part of the journey that I've been on in terms of the Minister of Infrastructure in the Western Cape has always been to engage our communities to take ownership of that infrastructure and that asset along with the state. Now, obviously, as the party leader in the province, I'm also the custodian of our party's policies and of our party's the discussion papers, among others, on my own portfolio, and it's to bring those discussion papers and those policy positions to life in terms of governance to ensure that those who do not support my party or those who are considering to support my party in 2024 can actually say, but look, there is a clear difference between Party X and the DA in terms of governance, in terms of how we implement policies and how we change people's lives. Which brings me to your secondary part of your question. This myth which keeps on surrounding that, we do not care for the marginalized in our province is a big, big myth. If you look at all of our municipalities, starting from the city of Cape Town and the non-metro municipalities which we do govern, more than half of all of their budgets are spent on addressing, infrastructure development and upgrading in the very specific wards and communities where it's other parties who actually won those wards. But the ownership and the custodianship of what is done through us as government at the local government level. If Party X has a councillor, they must take ownership and accountability. But instead, some parties lack the political maturity to understand that, we do deliver for all our people. And it suits their narrative to keep on saying that we do not care for the marginalized when in hardcore cold facts, in terms of budgetary spend, in terms of our programs, even as a provincial government, if you look at the whole picture, we do more for the marginalized in our province than any other province if you compare our budget spend. And we can account properly for every cent spent as well.
Now let's talk about discipline. As you mentioned, you like to look at balancing strong leadership with inclusivity and respect for differing opinions with the DA. How do you plan on doing this? And also tackling the issue around diversity?
Well, if you attended yesterday's Congress, you would have seen why the DA is the most diverse party in the country. Even the leadership that was elected with me to lead our party for the next 3 years. But discipline, yes, I'm a firm believer in discipline and party processes. Our party has very, very rigid internal processes, which at the Federal Congress, we streamlined some of them even further. It respects the right of all of our members. But I think what is crucial for me to focus on in terms of the disciplinary component of the party is to equip and empower our structures and activists and our more than 30,000 members so they can sensitize themselves regarding the party's internal processes and also the party's internal disciplinary processes. Because if you are aware of that, then you know exactly what will happen in certain scenarios, which I have noted over the last few years has been the big issue because those that are outside of our party do not understand our disciplinary processes. They tend to focus on the distorted versions which they are fed, which is not the truth.
Now, something we picked up from your victory speech is that you emphasize the importance of hard work starting now. Could you elaborate on some specific actions or plans you have in mind to fulfill the mandate you outlined for the next 3 years?
Well, the short term is next weekend's registration drive. We have to ensure that all the hard work that we've done over the last 18 months, doing vigorous registration drives building up to this moment, to ensure that the first victory is the victory in registration for the DA Western Cape. And we will be hitting the ground running for the next week, focusing on Saturday and Sunday next week to ensure that we maximize all the hard work of all my fellow activists effectively to get the people to go out and register. Then after that, the next stage of our election plan will kick in. We are ready. We know exactly when our communication will start commencing. We fully understand when all the other material associated with an election gets rolled out in the new year. And we already have our calendar in place. We have our tentative timelines with specific key milestones in place. So that is the hard work. But above all is to lead with fellow activists the charge on the ground through our branch structures, engaging, empowering, but also sensitizing those electorates and the voters to come out, firstly to register, but also to go out and vote in next year. So we have a decent plan, but I also have medium to long-term plans within my manifesto when I engaged our structures, and that will focus on the capacitation of structures, induction training of new members, but also of all of us taking ownership of the DA Western Cape in a principled and disciplined manner.
Now moving forward, and as you prepare for 2024, and obviously next week, where you're encouraging people to register to vote, I'd imagine that there are a few challenges that are before you, and one of those is, how do you convince young people who make up the majority of South Africa to register to vote? What is your message to them? And obviously there will be other segments within the greater Western Cape. Do you have specific strategies to deal with each one of those voter segments?
Well, in terms of the youth, and then that's a question which all parties are confronted with. How do you excite the youth to register, and then you need to excite them to vote? And that is where the role of the DA as a party of government or governance plays a crucial role, given the impact through our various government programs that we can account to our young people. We can showcase to them what accountable governance does for our youth in terms of empowerment, in terms of creating fair opportunities. But also, we have TikTok and you have all these other new social media platforms, which actually is a very interesting tool to use if you use it correctly, because this is the platforms our youth and our other groupings focus on as well. So we are streamlining our approach in terms of the youth. But what is encouraging, though, as I've stated, in the last 22 months, we've had a number of by-elections. And as you are aware, the IEC has registration drives and weekends ahead of those by-elections. And in each one of those by-elections, we have seen phenomenal youth uptake to come and register, but also the conversion from registering to voting on the by-election day has seen a massive influx of youth also coming to the polls, which is why we've managed to grow in every by-election. Even when we retain wards, we see phenomenal growth. So our message, our focus in terms of that component is working. We just need to streamline it a bit. The other components in our province, yes, that is crucial for us as well, given the demographics of the Western Cape. And also it's to understand how to approach each segment, but having one uniform message. That's crucial to be consistent with your messaging, and which is what we will do towards the 2024 elections.
Now, what is synonymous with the Western Cape is gang violence. Do you have a strategy to deal with that once and for all, or is it something that you've accepted that is always going to be with the Western Cape?
I do believe, we have been, since 2019, asking for the devolution of the police function to where it needs to be effective and efficient. We, through the DA in government, our Premier announced the LEAP program in partnership with the City of Cape Town and in the non-metro areas. We have rural safety strategies and plans implemented as well. So we are showcasing to the voters there is an alternative. And hence we want the devolution of the police function to a competent province like the Western Cape, to a metro like the City of Cape Town. And we have data that shows that our intervention in terms of our focus areas of the LEAP program has been phenomenally successful. Now, if we can bolster that into other areas by ensuring that we have sufficient police resources, which is the big problem in terms of allocation to our province, we do believe that is an effective and efficient system and approach to deal with the scourge of violence and gang violence in the short, medium and long term. Because some interventions, you do need to understand, you will not see the results in a year or two, but it's a medium to long term approach. And the impact of LEAP is now being seen in its efficacy and efficiency in the hotspots where it is being implemented.
Now, this obviously speaks directly to young people, because many of the parents that some of my colleagues in the Western Cape have spoken to have said that the reason that young people are turning to drugs or gang violence is because gangs is because they do not have jobs. Now, here is an offer where a gang says to you, if you become a member, this is what you are likely to earn in terms of some form of remuneration. So kids don't have jobs. They're looking to sustain themselves, and the only option for many of them is the gangs. How do you deal with that?
Well, first and foremost, it's the role of government to create the environment where investors come and invest in your municipality, in your province. Those are the real drivers of job creation. Government only has a role to create the environment to ensure that does happen by investing in infrastructure, But as well, what we have been doing as a provincial government through our various departments is focusing on skills development programs, more so our young people, and encouraging them to access those short programs. Sometimes it's 12-month cycle programs to equip and skill our young people, but also linking up in partnership with the private sector to ensure that as we empower these young people, we can ultimately see them being placed in a job opportunity or with the hope of a permanent job in the near future. But it all comes and focuses on building a strong partnership. Obviously, at the rate which we need to do it, that is what we need to focus on. Now, my colleague, Minister Mireille Wenger, earlier this year launched the Growth for Jobs strategy, which is focusing towards 2035, and built into that is to ensure that we increase our economy size to 1 trillion rand by 2035. And all of that boils down to job creation on the ground, but obviously in partnership with the private sector. And last year, the stats showed out of 169,000 new jobs that was created in a quarter, 167,000 of those were from the Western Cape. And if you look further into those stats, a lot of young people benefited in that. But I'm also well aware that infrastructure-led growth is also going to play a massive role in the expansion of the Western Cape's economy. We hence, through my own portfolio, we are implementing programs that is linked to our own projects to ensure that we skill those communities to be part of our projects and our programs where we do invest in terms of infrastructure.
Mr. Simmers, you've painted a rather bright picture of what lies ahead in the next 3 years in your leadership. Let's talk a little bit about some of the shortcomings that you feel the DA has not done as well and need to be addressed ahead of next year's election.
Well, as a party, we are ready for next year's election. I do believe that we are doing the best that we can, given the environment and the climate that is changing in terms of the politics of our own province. And it's focusing on getting the basics right. And one of the biggest matters that is obviously, on my radar is the issue of complacency in certain municipalities where we have governed for more than two or three terms. And it's, revitalizing, re-energizing those municipalities and my colleagues in those caucuses, because complacency is the biggest risk in any form of government. And we can't allow that to filter into our province where we govern, either at government level, because you'll note at the provincial level, as much as we are planning to celebrate 15 years of governance in 2024, we are innovative, we are focused, but we are not complacent. And that is how do you now switch our local governments towards innovation. And we are trying to do that politically when we, through our various governance for us, that we engage our colleagues at local government level, and, to shape their thoughts to being innovative, to be less complacent, but also to ensure that they also now adapt to the times where we are heading into. And I think that is the big thing that I will also be focusing on, is the issue of complacency.
Mr. Simmers, appreciate your time. Thanks so much for speaking to us. Newly elected Western Cape DA leader Tertuis Simmers.